So next question. This is an important one. Someone says, talk about faith in grief. Did your faith in God ever waver after you lost your parents? How do you deal with this? So anytime I post on any of my social media, one thing that I just don't do is I don't talk about politics, religion, controversial topics, because there's enough of that out in the world. Those who know me well, pretty much know how I feel about things for the most part. I keep a lot of stuff to myself. I know people think I'm like an open book. There's a lot I keep to myself, believe me. So I don't talk about my faith. I don't talk about my religion a lot, but I will make an exception for this. And I won't get into everything because all of it is not everybody's business, but I will talk about specifically this. So, faith in grief, and I'm going to speak from my personal experience with this. There are many scripture verses in the Bible that you can go to that discuss grief. However, I'm going to talk about what I went through and my experience with my faith in my grief. So, did your faith in God ever waver after you lost your parents? No, it did not. What did waver was my faith in people. I never lost my faith in God. I lost my faith in people who claim to be godly people, but I saw true colors. And that's one thing that grief does. Grief will show you who your true circle of people are in life. It will show you who really not only matters in your life, but who will be there for you. I learned that real quick, especially after my dad died, because the people that had been there for me when my mom died, I fully expected them to be there for me when my dad died, and they weren't. And what bugs me is when I hear people say, well, just tell someone you need help. Just let me know if you need help. Listen, I asked 3 people who were medical professionals that I knew if they would come and help me with my dad when he was sick and went on hospice. So when my mom was on hospice, listen, my mom there towards the end, she was probably 120, 130 pounds. When she was in her hospital bed, I could roll her and change her and, everything. No problem by myself. My dad, because of his heart failure, because he was much bigger than my dad was probably 100 pounds more than my mom when he died. And trying to roll him I would try and get him to help me, and he couldn't. He had no strength. And trying to do that by myself, because when my dad went on hospice, it was the beginning of COVID. When my mom, a year prior, was on hospice, the hospice nurses would come in to the house once a day. When my dad got sick, they only came once a week. That was it. They did not even want to come in the house. And when they did come in the house, they were in like full hazmat gear. And, I kind of looked at them and I'm like, you realize he's like stage 4 lung cancer. He's not getting better. Like, this is the end. We know what is happening. Like, you don't have to, And anyway, that's a whole other discussion. But I had no help. That's the bottom line here, is that I had no help, and I asked for help. I would call hospice and be like, hey, can you send somebody else out? I need somebody here at least once a day to help me change my dad. And they said no. I called 3 medical professional friends who I knew at the time and asked them if they would come to the house and help me. They all said no. And I'm like, I need help changing my dad, rolling it. I cannot do this by myself. So my dad there at the end developed bed sores. I mean, I did the best I could. I did the absolute best that I could. And, I struggled a lot with that because not only did I have to hear those people tell me no, but then my dad, because he told me to call those people. So then my dad asks, well, are they coming? And for me to tell him no one is coming, like no one is coming to help, you don't ever want to do that. You don't ever want to be the person telling someone who is suffering, no one is coming. No one is coming to help. So did I lose my faith in God? No. I've never lost my faith in God. I got that question a couple of times, actually, after my dad died. I never lost my faith in God. I lost my faith in people. People who claim to be godly people, and they showed me otherwise. And it wasn't, I want to make sure people know this wasn't because they were busy. This wasn't because whatever. They blamed COVID. They blamed not wanting to get my dad sick. And I'm like, hello, stage 4 cancer, like not getting better, home with hospice. Yeah, I heard a lot of excuses, and I haven't spoken to those people since. So that was a lot to deal with. But, also there were some people who were not nice to me. I won't go into details, but there were some people who said some really awful things. People were, whether they intended to be or not, people were awful. There was one lady who asked me on the first Mother's Day after my mom died how much longer I was going to be depressed about her. And that was a very smart lady, like book smart lady, who should have known better than to ask me that. And when I just kind of gave her a look and I was like, well, she's only been gone for 3 months. Anyway. So did my faith in God ever waver? No. But that's me, and that's because of the relationship that I have with him and have had with him my whole life and what I believe. It's people who constantly let me down. People let me down a lot. So that's where I lose my faith. It's not faith in God, it's faith in people. And I think a lot of people who say that they've lost faith in God, I think sometimes that can be misplaced. I think that you are putting the blame on him when it should be on another factor, on something else, whether that be people or whatever. I think, anyway, that's my opinion on it. That's what I think. That's my experience with it. And that's as much as I'll say about that. So the next question, somebody says, when you experience a tremendous loss, you are forever changed by grief. How has grief changed you as a person? How are you different now compared to the person you were before grief? Wow. So I've talked about this some. I think it forces you, unfortunately, to grow up. And I say that as an adult. I was an adult when I lost both of my parents. I was 38 when I lost my mom. I was 39 when I lost my dad. But it forces you to grow up even more because you've seen something that, you're sort of stripped of a little bit more of your innocence. You're not as naive. you're now in this club that nobody wants to be in. So yeah, it changes your outlook on things. Everything that you do now is touched by grief. There's a little twinge of sadness to everything that you do. If you have seen the movie Inside Out, which you should, because honestly, that's made more for adults than for kids. But if you've seen it, you know that you can feel two things at once. And it's such a good representation of what grief feels like, because you can experience something so happy, so joyful, so, exciting. But at the same time, there's always that layer of sadness. Joy and sadness, right? And Inside Out, they can coexist. And honestly, that's grief. It's part of grief. That's how it feels. It's all of these mixed emotions. Like, yes, you are so happy. Yes, you are so thrilled at this or this, whatever. But at the same time, you're like, but this person should be here. But they should be witnessing this. They should be, and they're not here. And that's grief. And that changes you because you don't see things the same way anymore. Your perspective changes, which makes you a different person because your point of view of everything is going to be different. How you see the world is going to be different. Things that used to matter don't matter anymore. Especially these trivial things. You stop wanting to do the daily grind and that doesn't matter anymore. You start to see the things that are really important in life, and you don't want to be part of anything that's not important. You just see things in a different light. Whether that be family, friends, pets. Like, I see time with my dog differently now. Spending time with her means so much more to me now, especially since I know how Potter reacted when my dad died. And I want to be there for her now as much as possible. Wait. So the next question is, what's been the biggest takeaway for you in your grief journey? Oh, wow. I mean, I've learned a lot. I mean, obviously, just how much it changes you. But I'd have to say how surreal it still feels so many years later. It still feels so weird and like I have been picked up out of whatever time I was living in and I've been dropped in this weird timeline. And here I am. And now I got to figure it out. It's just such a weird feeling. And it's one of those things that I thought would eventually go away, but it hasn't. And from what I hear other people tell me who are farther along in their grief journey than I am, is that it doesn't really go away. It will always feel surreal. And you just sort of learn how to ebb and flow with that. So that's probably been the biggest takeaway, is that feeling that I thought would dissipate within the first year. And it hasn't. It's still here. It's lessened a little bit, but it's still here. And that sort of leads into this next question. Someone says, the early days of grief, when the visits, food, and phone calls stop, when a person has to go through their new life alone in their grief, many people who have never experienced a deep grief don't realize that it's beyond the crying and the shock of the initial loss. It's the days after, when the shock wears off and the grief truly sets in. This is so true. And it goes to what I just said. Like, it people think that grief goes away or that it's something you can get over. Sorry, there was an eye roll there for anyone who's just listening. You don't get over grief, and that also makes it seem like it was just a little obstacle or an illness. It's it's not. It is always with you. It is always there. Because here's the thing, look at it this way. I always want my mom alive, and she's not. And that is something that you have to live with. You have to live with the fact that someone, that your person, your loved one is not alive. You have to live with that. And so thinking that someone can just get over that, that's not a thing. Don't tell someone that. Don't expect that of someone because it's not going to happen. So, yeah, I mean, deep grief is absolutely more than crying and shock and that initial few days of just trying to process what happened. Because guess what? You're still going to be processing 6 years later. You're still going to be trying to understand what is happening. There's still some days that I wake up and it's like, oh yeah, especially if I dream about my mom or my dad. Like the other night, I dreamt about my mom. And what's really weird is that since they have died, I don't dream about them as if they are still here. And I'm curious if anybody else does this. I don't dream about them as if they're still here. I dream about them like a lot of times my mom will come to me in a dream and she wants to know what I've been up to. You know, she wants to know, she wants me to fill her in on world events and, you know, what I've done to the house and things like that since she's passed away. And so that, anyway, moving along. If you could go back to the day your loved one died, would you want to tell your past self anything? Any advice, or would you want to give her a heads up? Ooh, I don't think there's anything that I could say that would have made her understand in the moment what her journey through grief and what the next few years would be like. I don't think there's anything that anyone could have said or done to make her feel like everything was going to be okay. Because in that moment, you're not thinking about future. You're not thinking about, you know, all you can think about is in that moment. So other than saying it's okay to take care of yourself and to just take it moment by moment, I don't think there's anything else that I could say because that girl is going to go through so much. And I say girl because even though that was like 6 years ago, 5 years ago, it feels like a lifetime ago. It feels like, but again, it also feels like last week. But yeah, I don't think there's anything that I could say. Even if I had a time machine and I went back as myself and said, hey, it's all going to work out eventually, but it's going to get real rough. You're going to hit the lowest low that you have hit in your life. And I've had a lot of lows before. But yeah, I don't think there's anything that I could say to her or to anyone, really. I don't think there's anything that I could say that would make a difference other than saying, I'm so sorry. Do you need a hug? Can I get you laundry detergent? Yeah. This next question. What's something surprising that you've learned about yourself during the last few years? Also, an interesting question. How how much I'm capable of, how strong I can be when I want to be and when I have to be. But I mean, that's the thing though, right? Strong people are only strong because they have to be. Yeah. I guess the most surprising thing that I've learned is how much I can handle even when I don't want to handle anything. Honestly, how much I can deal with at one time. Everything just falling down around me and sometimes quite literally with this house, but yet still being able to just go on with life. And so when my mom died, year after my mom died, and I ran a half marathon at Disney World in her memory, one of the things I really struggled with through training that I really appreciate more now is endurance. Half marathon, marathon, endurance is so important. And I worked really, really hard on my endurance and, to make sure I had the right pace and the right time and, all of this. But really working on my breathing and my legs and my beats and my endurance. And I think I can apply that to the last few years. My endurance level is definitely much higher than it used to be. That resilience, that endurance, strength, that has all, I think, been beneficial for me in this grief journey. Just plugging along one day at a time. My therapist asked me not too long ago, she said, "How are you really?" And and that's what I said. I was like, "I'm just plugging along. I'm just one foot in front of the other. Sometimes it's a day at a time, sometimes it's a week at a time, finding the balance for everything. Sometimes things get done, sometimes they don't. Trying to give myself grace, which is huge when things don't get done, because I'm a bit of a type A perfectionist. I like to have things done a certain way, which is a struggle because I also have ADHD. So at times I'm at war with myself on a lot of that, but trying to be okay with everything and knowing that everything is not going to be perfect and just one foot in front of the other, you know, trying to make a plan for the week ahead, for the month ahead. I try not to plan farther out than a month because I'll be disappointed otherwise, whether it's in myself or someone else. And I don't want to do that. But yeah, that's how I've managed especially the last year or two, really the last 6 months or so. I have felt better about myself than I have in a long time. It's taken a while to get here. There's been a lot of work. That's work that people can see, but also a lot of work that people don't see. You know, there's a lot that goes on below the surface that no one will ever see. The vast majority of people will never see the vast majority of the work that you put into yourself and your life. They will only see a very tiny percentage. So you have to be okay with the work that you do on yourself because you're the one that has to live with it. So I have put a lot of work into myself and my life, my health lately because the last few years have been rough. They have been just awful, if I'm being honest about it. Life is hard. If it were easy, I wouldn't have to do this podcast. Other people wouldn't have to do podcasts. You wouldn't have doctors. You wouldn't have lawyers. If life were easy, what would we have to complain about? You wouldn't. So to close out, I have surprised myself in how far I've come and everything that I've done. And, you don't think about it when you're in it. You don't think about how far your journey is. You don't think about how far you've come. And honestly, that's why I've taken a lot of pictures over the last few years, especially pictures of progress on this house, because this house is just, it's falling down around me, or it has been. I've been doing my best, but at times it's like, sticking your fingers in the holes of a dam that's about to burst. That's what it feels like sometimes. But all we can do is our best. And if we're doing our best, then that's something you should be proud of. If you are absolutely doing your best, and if you are committed to continuing to do your best, then what more can you ask for? Right now I am doing the very best that I can. And I know that. I know that now. I am doing the very best that I can. And especially with the resources that I have, with the funds that I have. Do I want all of this done right now? Absolutely. Do I want to feel better about everything that's happened over the last few years? Absolutely. And let's be clear too, my grief does not just involve the loss of my parents the last few years. I have a lot of grief that goes back all the way to childhood. And I'll talk about some of that next season. But yeah, there are things that I went through in childhood, as a teenager, definitely in college, and even beyond college. Just things that I've had to deal with and that other people have dealt with. And that's the point of this, is that, I know I'm not the only one dealing with this, but to give another voice to grief and to the grieving process, and to allow people to feel like they're not alone, to go, hey, she's going through it too, or she's been through this, or this person has dealt with this, or whatever. Because so often in grief, if you have never lost someone, if you have never been in that deep grief, you cannot imagine how lonely it feels, how isolating, how you feel like you're the only one suffering with this. And as Cicely said in her last episode, that's your brain lying to you. Because guess what? Other people are going through it. Other people have been through it. You are not alone. Like, we're here. We understand. I understand. I get it. All of our guests that we've had on, they get it. Dave gets it. Dave, who will hopefully be back with us for some future episodes in season 2. Dave absolutely gets it. Dave is a caretaker right now for his family. So he gets it. There's so many of us out there that get it. If you are dealing with grief, if you are dealing with loneliness and isolation, and you just don't know what else is going on, if your brain cannot comprehend what is happening, I have been there. I understand. I was there during COVID. Adds a whole other layer to grief. I get it. And it changes you. How can it not? How can it not change you? Of course it does. So thank you all out there for listening, for tuning in, for sharing this podcast. We are international, so thank you to those who have discovered us in other countries. I appreciate you listening and tuning in. Thank you to those who have shared us with other countries, with your friends, with your family. Just I'm overwhelmed. To everyone here in the US, thank you for tuning in and sharing. Please continue to like and subscribe. We will have more guests in season 2, more topics. If you have more questions about grief, if you are curious about something in grief, if you, whatever it is, whatever you want to know about. I don't judge. It's not my place to judge anyone else. Yes, send the questions, send it along. Because, like I said in the very first episode, starting out, if we can reach one person, if we can help one person out there not feel so alone, then that has made this whole thing worth it. That just, that makes it all worth it. So thank you for tuning in. We'll be back in about a month in June, in early June, with season 2 of the Big Grief podcast. So thank you for tuning in, and we will talk again very soon.